time we blow this scene. Get everybody in the stuff together. Okay, 3, 2, 1, let's jam.
What's up, guys? My name is Brendan, and the trick of the week this week is the aerial. First, I'll be going over the difference between the gymnastics style aerial and the aerial you see performed by trickers. Next, I'll be showing you how you can learn the aerial, 3 aerial variations, and how you can progress the aerial to the aerial twist. So with that said, let's get started. First, I want to make a distinction between the aerial you see performed by gymnasts and the aerial you see performed by trickers. When you see a gymnast perform an aerial, usually it's extremely inverted, with their hips directly over their head. That's because when they start their aerial, they drive vertically, kicking with their hamstring and their glute to drive them straight overhead. That's not what trickers do though. What trickers do is they do an off-axis aerial by generating momentum by throwing their body to the side and kicking using the side of their leg. There is a big difference here between the off-axis aerial and the on-axis aerial. When you guys are first learning this trick, what I would strongly recommend is focus on the off-axis tricking style, because you can then later progress that to doing a more on-axis gymnastics style aerial. So now that I've made that distinction, let's get started with how you can learn the tricking aerial. Next, I want to teach you how you can learn the tricker style aerial. And the progression has 2 important parts, the kick and the switch. To learn the kick, how you generate momentum for the aerial, I recommend you master the blaster scoot. The blaster scoot is an amazing setup, plus it's a phenomenal progression when you're working towards the aerial. It really teaches you how to kick that leg and generate flipping momentum. To do a blaster scoot, you stand in a backside stance, then you drop your chest, kicking your back leg to generate a ton of flipping momentum. As you do this, you put your hands on the ground for support, and then you try and kick your leg to end exactly where you started. If you're able to do a blaster scoot nice and clean and end right where you started, you have the power to generate momentum for your aerial. That kick, when you do the blaster scoot, that sideways kick as you dip your chest, is how you generate momentum for the aerial. If you can get really good at doing that blaster scoot over and over again, you'll have all the momentum you need. And once you learn the blaster scoot, you need to get comfortable with that kick and that dip of your chest. To do that, what I recommend is you progress your blaster scoot to the K-dum. A K-dum is just a blaster scoot without your hands. It really shows that you can control the kick and the chest dip involved in generating momentum for the aerial. And once you get the kick, you need to focus on the switch. The switch that happens at the apex of the kick when you do your aerial. So what I recommend is you do that blaster scoot, but at the apex, once your kick reaches the top, just switch your legs. Use your hands for that support, and get used to doing that off-axis flip. Once you get used to doing it with the blaster scoot, you can remove your hands altogether or slowly lower the pressure to do it with just the K-dum. And then you're doing a tricker style aerial. That off-axis aerial generated from kicking the side of your leg and dipping your chest. By doing the blaster scoot, K-dum, and then activating the switch, it's also a nice, safe progression because you can just lower the pressure on your arms the closer you get to performing the aerial. And that is the progression that I would recommend if you're trying to learn the tricking style aerial. Next, I want to go over 3 important aerial variations. The aerial is an extremely common trick, but it's not used that frequently in the sport of tricking. Rather, people will often use aerial variations to transition between skills to set up for even bigger skills or just as a way to spice up their combos. Here are 3 variations that I think every tricker should know. The first is the aerial scissor. To do an aerial scissor, you do an aerial, but you put way more power into it. Kicking harder with your leg, dipping your chest even harder, and jumping with that plant leg to get you in the air to give you a little bit of extra air time. So that way, once you leave the ground, you can switch your legs and execute a massive twist kick right before you land. And that's the aerial scissor. You just overpower the aerial, switch your legs, and execute that twist kick. The second variation is the aerial semi. The aerial semi is how people set up for aerial front swing rise. To do the aerial semi, you want to do your aerial the same axis as you do your rise. So if you do a very flat rise, you're probably going to want to do a flatter aerial. Or if you have a more inverted rise, you're going to want to kick with more of your hamstring to get a more vertical aerial. But if you can match your aerial to the same axis you do your touchdown rise, you can land in that semi position with your front leg up and your arms in front of you, and then you can front swing to the rise. Being able to do aerial semi front swing rise means you're able to do one of the most popular setups in tricking. The third variation that I want to show you is the aerial switch. The aerial switch is just like the other aerial variations I've shown you, where you focus on getting more power in that set, but then once you leave the ground, you just focus on a different body position. For this, we'll be doing a switch. To do the aerial switch, you execute the aerial, but once you leave the ground, you switch your legs at the hips to land you in an eagle position. The aerial switch can be used as a setup or just as a really nifty transition. As with all these other aerial variations, you can use them however you want. And by varying the aerial, you're able to learn a ton of other tricks along the way. Now, I want to show you guys how you can start with the aerial and then progress to the aerial twist. Finally, I want to talk to you about the aerial twist. The aerial twist is an extremely common move in tricking, and it's one of the main progressions if you want to move up to really high-level advanced skills. To do the aerial twist, you execute an aerial, but then once you leave the ground, you move into your twisting position, looking to your twisting side, bringing your arms towards your twisting shoulder, and bringing your legs together. When you're doing this, make sure you're getting the set and the power you need from your aerial before you rip in that twist. One of the most common issues that I see is people set for their aerial, but before they even kick that leg, they're starting to pull in their twist. That's what gives people those really off-axis aerial twists that look just like a butterfly twist. To do that A-twist, you really need to get that inverted look, and you need to kick with your glutes and your hamstring and dip your chest forward. If you go over to the side, it'll look like that butterfly twist I mentioned earlier. And once you spot your landing, you want to exit the twisting position, bringing your head back to neutral as you're spotting your landing, opening up your arms and reaching out that left leg to catch your weight. If you can do a nice, strong aerial, you shouldn't have that many issues progressing to the aerial twist. What I would recommend is learn the butterfly kick and the butterfly twist first, and then learn the aerial and aerial twist, because it's all just a spectrum. If you do a completely flat butterfly kick twist, then it's a B twist. If you do that slightly more inverted, it's again a B twist. But once your hips start going over your head, then it starts becoming an aerial twist. It's just one big spectrum depending on the axis at which you twist around. Completely inverted is an aerial twist, completely horizontal is a butterfly twist, and everything in between is some sort of mix of both. When you're learning this trick, be cognizant of that. Be aware that the aerial twist might look like a butterfly twist unless you're really kicking overhead. Thank you so much for watching. If you want to suggest next week's trick of the week, please leave it in the comments down below. And if you have any questions about the aerial or anything I talked about, please also leave them down below. I'll try and be as responsive as I can. Thank you guys again, and have a lovely day.